Welcome, everyone. Welcome to the Women Are Worthy Network. Happy Galentine, happy Galentine, and happy Valentine. And in other words, happy Love Day. This is Jacqueline Charles. I'm your hostess with the mostest at the Women Are Worthy Network. I am the creator. So check this out, y'all. I'm a woman of a certain age, right? And I'm talking to other women who are of certain age, and they're having issues. Some of them are talking to me because you guys know that I'm, into homeopathy, and I'm also vegan. And a lot of women are talking about going through menopause, going through perimenopause and things like that, right? So, hello, Carrie. So we have so many people that in this country alone, or maybe on this side of the world, women don't want to talk about menopause. It's almost as if you're no longer going to be here. It's almost like you're being cast away. You're not virile anymore. You're not, there isn't a pep to your step anymore. So without further ado, the Women Are Worthy decided to get the one and only expert, and she's evidence-based. We want everyone to meet Dr. Janie Goddard. She's a renowned expert in the field of natural health. That's what I said, natural health and wellness, with years, even though she looks like she's 21, with tons of years of experience, and she has a passion for helping others. Janie is dedicated into empowering individuals to achieve optimal health, well-being through natural, holistic practices and approaches. So I want everyone to know, get your friend. If you're a woman of a certain age, if you're having hot flashes, you don't have your cycle anymore, something's going on, you're sleeping in the bed with your significant other, they want it hot. This is the time to check in and tap in. Hello, Dr. Janie.
Hello, and I apologize about the background noise. I've just reached this certain age, shall I say, and I've done some life changes, moved, and just got myself a rescue puppy who's very protective. So that's who you can hear in the background. So I do apologize for all of that. Anyway, look, thank you so much for having me, Jacqueline. It's such a thrill to be here. I cannot tell you just how wonderful it is. It's absolutely exciting. So, and I can't wait to talk about menopause and perimenopause, because so many women that I know are suffering, and we, between us, you and I, have so much that we can share that really makes an absolute realistic difference and transforms lives.
And I want to shout out to Carrie. Carrie says, I love Janie. I love her. Doctor, to be perfectly honest, this is the issue that I have. Especially in the world that we're living in now. If you're over 30, God forbid, if you're over 40, bye-bye. If you're over 50, let's go ahead and bury you right now, right? And it's so good to see people living like we are. And we need to talk more about it, because what I've noticed is when people talking to me, like if we're out and about and they're talking about menopause, they're like, Jackie, the big M, or menopause. It's a whisper. Why do you think, and who has created this, that we can't talk about menopause, perimenopause, menstrual cycles, on top of that? Why can't we feel comfortable talking about stuff like that?
I think it's millennia of oh my goodness, I'm going to get really feminist now. I think it's millennia of suppression of women. I mean, I think when you think back to ancient civilizations, most of them were matriarchal. And so, run by women, everything was sort of organized by the women folk. You had the wise woman who would deliver babies, and she would be ceremonial, and she would, administer medicines and cures and so on and so forth. And of course, there's immense power in that, isn't there? Which, of course, could be perceived as highly threatening. So, for example, here in the UK, our original sort of, before Saxons and then Saxon communities were run by essentially women. We had queens who were far more powerful than the kings and so on. And that didn't sit well with other invaders, let's say when we had the Norman invasion, which was very sort of male oriented. So women sort of have kind of been expunged. And women's power, so things like menstruation, so periods, menopause, female sexuality, all of those extraordinary, powerfully, amazingly powerful things have sort of been almost kind of perceived to be threatening and possibly perceived to be wrong or evil or what have you. So, I mean, I remember when I was a little girl, I hope it's different. I think it is different for young girls nowadays. But I remember, when we started our periods in secondary, what we call secondary school, you never talked about it. You sort of would kind of nip into the girls' loos and rustle, quietly rustle your papers, as you're getting your sort of period protection out, whether it's tampons or towels or whatever. It was just a thing that that dare not speak its name. So it's one of these things that really is very difficult. I mean, I'm glad to say here in the UK, we are now talking about menopause a lot more, particularly in the mainstream media, thank goodness. And this is down to women my sort of age and thereabouts who are actually out there on television and actually sort of reclaiming the menopause and the power that comes along with cessation of the menstrual cycle, where we don't have to worry about pregnancy and so on. So, there is a lot to be said for that. But I must just explain, so I'm not actually Dr. Janie Goddard. If I was in America, I would be, but here in the UK, I'm not actually a doctor, so I'm just plain old Janie Goddard. And
and I was going to say that because I was so funny you mentioned that, because I was going to say, because after doing my research in the United States, you would be considered a doctor.
Yes,
and in the UK, that's like when we're, a certain profession here, and if we go to the UK or if we go to, in the East, we're not considered what our profession is. So let's get down to the nitty gritty, because I know that's why people are here. Let's talk about periods. Let's talk about menstruation. But right now, let's really, really focus on right now because I want my followers and people who I consider in my family to let's talk about basically menopause. Let's get right into it. The cures, the elixirs or whatever. So first of all, before we get into that, what made you decide to focus? Because you're all about anti-aging. And let me tell you something, Janie. As far as I'm concerned, menopause is a part of that anti-aging. Okay. So what made you decide to let me focus on menopause?
Okay. I think personal experience. So being a woman of a certain age who's just had her 60th birthday last week, I realized that so many of my peer group were all going through menopause, and some were being really quite successful and floating through it, and others were really, really struggling. So I was thinking, I was really, my kind of attention was really drawn by what's the difference, what are the things that make the difference. So I started looking at this and started reading up, and given that I was going through my own menopause and so on at the time, I really just felt, well, what can we do? How can we help these women who are having an absolutely ghastly time of it? Now, we cannot minimize just how bad menopause can be for some women. In fact, some women tell me that, they actually didn't recognize themselves when they were going through menopause. And so the danger, though, I think, is that conventional medicine tries to medicalize menopause. We've got to claim menopause back as women, because it is a time of immense strength. I think we become wiser. I think when we're not dealing with menstruation, with things like PMS, PMD, cramps, and potential for pregnancy, and all of those sorts of things, when all of that's taken off the table, we then are sort of the matriarchs. We're able to look at situations and think, okay, fine, what do I do? Now I'm this powerful matriarch. But unfortunately, conventional medicine will have it that menopause is a medical condition. It's not. It's a phase of life. It's natural. It's not to be medicalized. Now, I'm under no illusions that there are some women who are suffering so badly for whom it may be sensible to look at certain strategies from the perspective of conventional medicine. So possibly things like bioidentical hormone replacement therapy, if that's appropriate for that particular woman. So I would never say never. I would never be judgmental. I think we've got to take each case as it stands. But if we can look at what happens in other societies and take a leaf out of their books, that would be a really good idea. Because, for example, I'm sure a lot of our viewers don't necessarily know that, let's say in Japan and Singapore, they don't even have a word for menopause. Isn't that strange when you think about it? It's because they don't get the symptoms. They just, essentially, their periods just stop. And that's it. They just get on with life because
But
they're
Jamie,
not.
here's the thing in those countries. I don't mean to interject, but here's the thing in those countries. Places like that, they embrace getting older.
Yes.
They embrace it. So it's like, okay. And if you think about it too, the people, men and women who are older, they're the Google, they're the Jeeves that people go to because they're so wise. Where in other countries, in the United States specifically, we don't respect our elders. And when you're getting old, we're going to throw you in a nursing home. Now, let me say this before y'all come at me. I'm not talking about the ones who still visit their parents and they need it because of medically necessary. And, I am not talking about that. I'm talking about the ones that throw their family in there and they don't visit them. Those are the ones I'm talking about because, and you hear celebrities are talking about it too, Janie, that the minute they turn 30, I heard Jennifer Aniston talking about it, 30, 40, you can forget it. That's why I'm loving to see Diane Keaton, women of that age, who are actually acting and doing things together. What's her name? Goldie Hawn. They're doing these movies. Older women are doing movies, and we've known they've gone through menopause. So I just wanted to put that out there, but I didn't mean to interrupt you.
No, not at all. No, you've raised such an important point. Yes, you are right. These are societies that do look after their elders and respect their elders. And we have that to a pretty good extent here in the UK. But we also have that tendency to say, well, get ye to a nursing home. And it does happen. So, if we don't want to end up in the nursing home, there's a lot we could and should be doing for ourselves, because the situation that I think we all need to embrace is the fact that we are, as sort of Western societies, and I'm massively generalizing here, but we are generally living longer.
Yes.
But our health span is lifespan is increasing, but our health span is decreasing, which means that we have a longer period at the end of our lives where we're experiencing much longer stages of horrific health conditions that are so debilitating, and that's what puts us into the nursing home. So the good thing about all of those health conditions, such as heart disease, lifestyle-related and mediated cancers, things like arthritis, kidney disease, liver disease, eye disease, and so on and so forth, all of these things, brittle bones and osteoporosis and so on, all of these things are actually underpinned by chronic runaway inflammation. There's so much that we can do with the kind of lifestyle recommendations that both you and I advocate that will actually halt and reverse these disease processes. And because they are anti-inflammatory in nature, what happens then, of course, is that it has this knock-on effect of mediating our hormones so that actually our menopause and perimenopause years are a lot more easy to deal with. So the one thing, though, I think is really important that we do always acknowledge, Jacqueline, is that there's no one magic bullet. So a lot of people will come up to me and they'll say, hey, Janie, what's the one thing I could do to make a difference? And as you know, and I'm sure probably all of our viewers know, there is no one magic bullet. There's no, you can't just do nutrition to the exclusion of appropriate exercise, and you can't do appropriate exercise to the exclusion of perfect sleep patterns, and stress response management and all of those other things, that hydration, that we need to bring in order to create a truly holistic lifestyle approach that actually modulates, protects us from chronic disease, modulates hormones, and actually just improves our health and well-being beyond all imagining and all measures.
So, what would you say if someone were to call? We know it's not one magic, but someone says, "Oh my God, I'm having hot flashes. I don't know what to do. Oh my God," because summer's coming here, right?
Yes.
And it doesn't have to, because my girlfriend told me she woke up in a bed of sweat,
Yeah.
and it was the winter time, and she was so uncomfortable. So, what do we do? What can we say, and how can we help those who may have those conversations with us?
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. Well, I'm very aware that I'm advocating for, do this, do this, do this, do this. It's a holistic lifestyle that we need to adopt. But I'm very, very aware that there's a lot to that, and we can't necessarily expect everybody to suddenly magically transform overnight and suddenly integrate all of these recommendations into their lives. So I think I would say baby steps. And I know that if you're suffering really, really badly, and particularly say hot flashes, particularly at night when you wake up in that horrendous cold sweat, that's the problem. You sweat, 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 and that perspiration just gets really cold really fast, and it's absolutely awful. I've had them, so I know whereof I speak. So what can we do? Well, yes, start to integrate all of the things that we talk about. In my latest book, Rewind Your Body Clock, I realized, wow, I'm telling them to do this, I'm telling them to do this, I'm telling them to do this. That is really hard. It's a lot. It could get very, very confusing. So I've kind of created a 21-day rewind plan so that people can actually start to do things step by step, really, really easily. And so I think breaking things down, chunking things down into manageable bite-sized chunks really, really helps. But there are certain first aid things that we can do for ourselves as well. So the kinds of first aid things that I'm talking about are increasing our consumption of fermented soy products. So, we've got things to choose from, like, obviously tofu, tempeh, and so on. Now, there's a lot of fear around soy products because they're
Mm,
phytoestrogens.
mm.
And so, of course, the myth that's been put out by the dairy industry is, oh, no, 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 you mustn't eat soy products because, they mimic estrogens or estrogens. And yeah, they do, but they actually act on those estrogen receptors that are prone to driving hormonal problems, even things like hormone-mediated cancers. So they actually are protective against those illnesses, and definitely pro heart health and so on. So we need to actually keep going back to what does the research actually say, rather than just buying into the myths and basically lies that we're told by the dairy industry. So I would say increase things like fermented soy products. And this is one of the reasons why in Japan they don't have a word for menopause, because they eat so much fermented soy. So as I say, tofu, tempeh, natto, and so on. And so, yeah, it's really, really important that we know, that we dig deeper. So I give everybody this. I'm not plugging my book, but I do want people to know there is a good researched resource to go to, and plenty of others as well. It's not just me talking about this. So I would say that. Now, also, the other thing that I would like ladies to look at is there are an array of herbs that you can take. Or herbs, as you call them in the US, and these are very, very fast acting. So we've got things like Agnus castus, we've got things like black cohosh, we've got various options for us. But here's the thing, I would say be very, very careful, because we're all individuals. And I always caveat my recommendations for herbs by saying, I don't know if you're on any medications. I don't know if you have any health issues when you're watching this. So I'm making general recommendations right now. I'm not promising a cure because it would be absolutely unethical to do so. So please bear in mind that there are really great herbal solutions that you can use and do work, but please be sensible. Make sure you're not allergic to anything. Make sure that these particular things are actually suitable for you as an individual. Okay, so do your homework. I know you're a smart lady. You're all smart ladies who are watching this. Do your homework first, and again, check my book because I've got all the caveats in there as well. And again, there's a lot of really good info online as well. So just bear all of that in mind. And then the other things I would say is, if you can get to see a really good professional homeopath, they will make an absolute huge difference to symptoms. Homeopathy is one of the best things I've come across. Speaking as a homeopath, it's one of the best things I've come across, and also acupuncture. Again, traditional Chinese medicine, where you're being prescribed herbs, being given acupuncture to support the action of the Chinese herbs. These things absolutely work. My goodness, they make a big, big difference. So there's no need to keep suffering. That's really important. That's the take-home message.
I think there's people are suffering in silence, because I want to go back to something. There's several points I want to make.
Yes.
When we're younger, now it's different, but when we were younger, no one was sitting down with us since before your cycle came. And it's usually, and also too, when your cycle, that's when you hear about the birds and the bees. That's if you heard about the birds and the bees, because people, or who the parent basically were validating or saying, now you have your cycle, you can have a baby, so let's talk about the birds and the bees. Yeah. Instead of talking about the birds and the bees prior to the cycle, and instead of talking about the cycle prior to the cycle, because you have a lot of people, I know growing up, girls would say, oh my God, I don't want a boy touch me because I'm going to get pregnant now that I have my cycle, right? And first of all, yeah, plug your book, plug your doggone book. That's why you're here. That's why I want you here, to plug your book. And we are here to say, whatever you're going to take that's homeopathy wise, if you go to a doctor, consult your doctor, because some combinations may lower the effectiveness of whatever medication you're on. And as Janie said earlier, it may cause some sort of reaction to you. You can become allergic to it. But Black Kokosh, I know so well about that, because that helps you with the night sweats. And for those of you out there like, okay, I'm getting close to age, what are the symptoms? Sometimes anxiety can be included, hot flashes, night sweats, the vajayjay dryness. Look, we're going to talk about it, okay? Because you can have that as well. And some people that I know, a lot of vegans that I know that are raw vegans, Janie, they slid right into, and I don't want to call it menopause, they slid right into not having their cycle anymore. Right? So they didn't experience any symptoms or anything like that. So it does go back to eating. I want to touch on when you were talking about tofu. I eat tofu, and I'm in the state of Georgia. I don't go into the regular supermarkets to purchase my tofu. I go into the Asian areas to get them, because everything has GMOs. Now, I'm not saying theirs doesn't either, but when I go into an Asian restaurant, 9 times out of 10, I try to order what they're eating, because so many things are Americanized. Like, they don't eat certain foods that we eat, that they prepare in the restaurants. So, and then as we know, in Okinawa has one of the oldest, longest living people who live to at least 100 in Okinawa, Japan. They eat tofu, they eat rice, they eat all the things that we're saying is no good. Janie, I'm so glad that you mentioned the dairy was the one that brought out the stuff about tofu, because there's so many misconceptions about tofu, that if you eat tofu, it can promote cancer, it can do this to prostate cancer, it can do so many things. And like you, Janie, after watching and hearing the suggestions that we have, do your research. don't just take someone's word. Just do your research. That's all we're asking people to do. Jamie, the floor is yours, but I just wanted to just, with a broad stroke, talk about those things that you mentioned.
Absolutely. No, you're absolutely right. It's very interesting actually, because uh, I always forget that I'm speaking from a position of massive privilege here in Europe, because our soy is not GM. We're very, very, very lucky, because the EU, and of course, obviously, although Britain has got divorced through Brexit from the EU, we still have the same food standards pretty much. So, we don't have all of that GM stuff to contend with. So we are really, really lucky. So I think what you mentioned, you see, I wouldn't have thought of mentioning this, but you're absolutely right. For our more stateside audience, please, just do as Jacqueline says, and make sure that, if you are going to be having soy products, that you do source them from sort of the less conventional places, dare we say, so from the Eastern stores and things like that, because those are sourced from much cleaner sources. Yeah, thank you for mentioning that. That's a really important takeaway.
I got your back, because we want to make sure people, there isn't a backlash. You're such a phenomenal person, and I'm always going to put disclaimers, out there. But Jamie, let's really get into it. Why is it that we don't talk about it as much as we should? Like, if someone's going through it, we don't feel comfortable. Look, if it's in here, it comes out here, but not everyone's like me, right? So how can we make our sister friends comfortable to talk about if they're going through? Because vaginal dryness, that's going to be an issue for intimacy's sake, right? Why aren't we just, saying it loud and proud? And think about this: menopause, menstruation, all these MEN words, right? I'm not even going to go into that, but why can't we feel comfortable just talking to each other and saying, girl, think I'm going through menopause? Why does it make us feel, or some women feel like they're less of a woman, or do they feel like they're losing power? They're getting older. What do you think? What's going on?
It's funny, as you were just speaking, I was just thinking, we use terms like the curse. It's just so ingrained, isn't it? That all these female bodily functions are, really rather dirty or unclean in some way. In certain religious groups, you'll have a situation where a woman cannot be touched because she's unclean during the time she has her period. Think what that message is saying to young girls. It's shocking, actually. It really, really is. And of course, obviously, we're not going to change that with this discussion, because this is sort of derived from years and millennia of tradition. Let's not forget. But it's really bad for women. And so I think really, if we can do anything with this discussion, we can ask all these beautiful women who are watching this. If you are experiencing symptoms, talk to your friends. Do mention it, because if you're experiencing it, she's likely to be experiencing it. And if we've given you the courage to actually say, hey, I've got to, I don't know what to do, because sex has got really, really painful, and I just feel so, really uncomfortable, and I don't know what to do about it. Or sex was really painful, and I've now found that you can actually make a little pellet out of slippery elm. You can pop that up inside you, and it actually creates moisture. Now, as we then start to do things like exercise approaches, and I always talk about the three-legged stool of exercise, because these three particular types of exercise will actually modulate your hormone response and your hormone production. So while you're waiting for all of that to kick in, you'll actually be able to find that things are a lot more comfortable. And when things are more comfortable with sex, your desire desire increases. A lot of the time women talk about lack of libido. They just got no desire for sex after they're sort of going through perimenopause and menopause, purely because things are so darn painful. And nobody talks about just how painful it can be. I mean, a girlfriend of mine was talking about how she felt like there was sort of literally a broken glass bottle being sort of shoved up inside her. I mean, absolutely excruciating, she said. And, so I said, look, create this little pellet and then start doing, eating. She was already eating plant-based, but she was still eating quite a lot of processed foods within that sort of plant-based thing. Said, no, look, whole food plant-based, high raw, as much raw as you possibly can. This is going to modulate your hormone expression. Plus, if you start doing your mindful exercise approaches, so this is part of the three-legged stool approach, mindful exercise approaches like yoga, Tai Chi, Qigong, Pilates, let's not forget, is a mindful form of exercise. So those are really, really good. And then what we can do, so that deals with psychological poise and stress resilience. Now, the next thing we need to think about as well is weight-oriented exercise. So where we are not just stressing our muscles by doing resistance training, lifting heavier weights than you probably think you should be lifting. If you've not ever done this before, make sure you get a trainer or you get some help at the gym. But make sure you are lifting heavy weights. People always used to say, oh no, you'll bulk up. You don't want to do that as a woman. Well, actually, no, you're not going to bulk up because you don't have the testosterone levels to be able to bulk up. Yes, we do see women bodybuilders and they work so hard to get to that point where you can see that large muscle mass. I mean, these women are working their butts off to get to that point. Probably, I don't know if we've got any budding bodybuilders in our midst in this call. If so, well, hats off to you, lady. But most of us will never, ever get to that point. This myth was, we're doing lots of myth busting today, Jacqueline, but the myth women should lift light weights at high repetitions. That's not going to do anybody any good. It's one of these, again, it's about controlling women, about not wanting women to be strong, because the weaker we are, the more easily taken advantage of we are. Don't get me started. Anyway, so we need to be in the gym or doing body weight exercises at home, but we're lifting heavy. What happens there is we're growing muscle, which is great because, women talk about, oh my God, my body's changed, during menopause. I've gone saggy. Oh, look at my arms. They've gone all crepey. I've got bingo wings and all of that sort of thing. Well, the point is, if you build your muscle, all of that extra slack is going to get taken up and you're not going to have bingo wings. You're not going to have, crepey skin because it gets filled up from inside. Same with your face. You should be doing facial exercises. In fact, it reminds me, I'm going to be creating a course of facial exercises and lymphatic drainage and so on, because it's so needed. Women are just, again, this is something women really, really almost don't realize they need, but actually once you explain it to them, that you can build muscles in your face. And again, it fills out the wrinkles. So, all of these things are so important. But the other thing that weight training does, Jacqueline, is it strengthens our bones, because our muscles are attached to our bones. And the more you stress a muscle, the more it puts pressure on the bone, which of course strengthens the bone. The more you stress a bone, the stronger it gets. It's that whole adage of use it or lose it. Okay, so that's that. And then the third thing that we need to do is we need to think about doing put my teeth back in, shall I? We need to be looking at doing it's very sort of low intensity aerobic training. And the best way of doing that to strengthen our heart and lungs and our aerobic system is walking. We human creatures are designed to walk. And so if we can get, it's a good benchmark. If we can aim towards 10,000 steps a day, that is a really, really good benchmark. What that will do for us is it reduces inflammation, and it also reduces visceral fat and fat around the outside of our bellies as well. What people notice as they go into menopause is that they tend to start putting weight on around the middle. Now, it used to be thought that this fat around the middle and the visceral fat around our internal organs was an inert substance, and that the only problem with it was that it might not be aesthetically pleasing. Well, I'm not here to, body shame anybody, God forbid. But what we now know is that this is a source of estrogens. And these are the kinds of estrogens that postmenopause actually start to drive those estrogen or estrogen mediated cancers. So this is one reason why we do need to really look at getting rid of as much of this belly fluff, midriff fluff as we possibly can. Because if we're getting rid of that, we're also getting rid of the fat that tends to sit around our internal organs. The other problem with all of that fat internally and sort of around the middle is that it's also a source and is where IL-6, it's a pro-inflammatory cytokine, a hormonal messenger that drives chronic inflammation, and that's where that's made. So by having all of this fat that suddenly accumulates around our middle when we get into menopause is not doing any of us any good. And by aiming for our 10,000 steps, I know we're all at different stages. Sometimes I manage it, sometimes I don't. My day job is running the Complementary Medical Association. That's the world's leading and largest professional association for everybody in this natural health field. And I have to confess, I've been doing 16, 18-hour days just recently. It's not what I would advise anybody to do, but unfortunately needs must. And we have to be realistic because sometimes our lives just go like that. But we've got to then think about, okay, so I've got all of this stuff I have to do. What do I do to counteract that? Well, it's eating well, getting good quality sleep, and actually trying to get out and walk that little dog that you heard barking earlier on. So, these are the sorts of things that we need to do. So we've got to make sure that if we can do this three-legged stool of exercise, and it takes less time than you think it does, we're going to be going a heck of a long way towards actually balancing our hormones and getting rid of things that actually produce troublesome hormones, whether they're pro-inflammatory hormones or whether they're estrogens or estrogens. So I would always suggest that, we look at that as a really good strategy for managing a lot of these symptoms.
And for me, there's a walking group that I'm a part of. I took a break, but we would walk and I think, most of the people know, we would start walking at 5:45. We would walk 6 miles. So we have like 15, some of us 20, 25,000 steps. And when I'm telling you we're walking, hi, Natasha. Hi, Tasha. We're not doing leisurely walking. Yeah. When I tell you you're sweating, right? And Tasha's part of that group too. We are sweating and you feel good because some days you don't want to go. And then when you go, if you're upset with your significant other, it goes away because we laugh and we talk and all that kind of stuff. So, but I reached out to to a podiatrist, and he said we were doing it like 5 miles, 5 days a week. He said 5 days a week, it's too much. So eventually someone had a hip problem, someone had a leg problem, all those things were happening, right? So I cut down. But, and I've been away from walking for a while, but what I've decided to do is I'm going to do my 10,000 steps. So I found my watch, my Apple Watch, and it was so funny. Up until 11 o'clock 2 nights ago, I was walking in my bedroom because I'm like, oh my God, I'm at 8,000. I thought I was at 10,000. And yesterday I was walking around on my property. Yes, I was walking around on my property, and I'm walking in the house, and I'm like, I'm at 9,000. It's 7:15. I got to get to that 10,000. So what I've learned to do, and this is what I saw one of my clients do, and I'm doing that now. Wow. When he works from home, and it's a man, because I got to look at his schedule. When he works from home, y'all, this is what he does. He has it scheduled from 12:15 to 1:15. He's doing a walk lunch. I'm like every single day, unless he comes into the office. And I said, you know what? That's what I'm going to do. I can at least, when I'm working from home, I can at least get in the morning. My goal is, let me get 4,000. At least in the morning. At the very least, let me get 3. But I realized I have to push a lot more. So in the afternoon or evening, Janie, I'm married. I ain't trying to get my 10,000 step at 11, 12 o'clock at night. You know what I'm saying? I want to cuddle. You know what I'm
Yeah.
saying? I don't want to wait till that late. So I agree with you. I advise everyone to get to, and here's the thing, y'all, I'm telling y'all, if you start implementing this before your menopause, before it happens, like in your 30s, if you're exercising, I'm hearing so many women who are in the gym working out. They've been working out, right? And when they get through that, they're like, Miss Jackie or Jackie, it just, I mean, I felt a hot flash one night and that was it. But but then the doctors want to push these medications, right? And for some people, and I'm not saying all, for some of these people who are taking some of these medications, we're hearing cancers are coming, right? So the estrogen stuff that they're taking. So I am just, again, Janie and I are not here to tell you not to, we're asking you just do your research. Black cocoa work, relieve stress. As we all know, stress can unalive you, right? So we want to make sure that you're prioritizing things. When you're doing 16, 18 hours a day work, you're not doing it every single day for some people, right? You're doing, like you said, Janie, you're doing the website. For other people who are doing this every single day or 5 days a week, you got to make time for yourself. Because here's the issue. Because I keep hearing women, which is getting on my damn nerves. And yes, I said damn. I ain't got time. Well, what's going to happen is the illness is going to catch up and you're going to have to do it. Natasha said, this is great information. Thank you for sharing. Tasha, I'm all about sharing. So that's the whole point. You got to look, y'all, today is supposed to be Valentine's Day. I don't know what day you guys are watching this. I am not talking about Valentine's, your husband, your significant other telling you they love you and they treating you right, because that's a whole nother show. You shouldn't wait for someone to treat you right on one day. But I want y'all looking at the camera. At the end of the day, I want you to take care of you. You find the time. If you have to carve out time, you got the kids, you got this. Think about this. They tell you all the time when you're on the airplane, if it goes down, you got to put the oxygen mask on yourself first. So why wait for the illness to take you out and you got to be in the hospital? You got to be on 15 drugs. Find the time now, because if you find the time now, you'll have more time with loved ones. Love yourself. I'm going to say it. You don't make time for yourself. You don't love yourself. And when I find people like that, Janie, there's some self-esteem issues going on. You can't keep chasing the bag and get into the bag. Let me keep it real. Stop chasing the bag. The bag is making you the money. It's getting you exhausted. If you keep chasing it and it's not coming, that's telling you something. Sometimes you just got to be still, whether it's through meditation, and that'll help you with your menopause, whether it's through exercising. You got to be still. Let the bag chase you. You put out your product, you put out what you're doing. Yes, you got to market it, but you can't keep chasing the bag and also not taking care of yourself. I know I'm going off on a tangent, Janie, but I talk to so many people. I have clients, and when I'm first talking to them, this is what I'm hearing. Well, I can't afford to pay you because I got to work 19 hours and I got to do this.
Yeah.
But then what happens later on when they're in the hospital or they had a mental breakdown or a physical, then they call me, right? So I really want this to be a platform. And I want Jenny and I, we're talking to you because we're sisters here, right? I want y'all to take care of yourselves. Please take care of yourselves. That's the bottom line. I wanted an expert to come on to talk about menopause and perimenopause. Thank you, Tasha. Self-care. We got to do that. You can't keep working and working and working and working and working. Bill's gonna still be here in the United States. Uncle Sam is still here. And when you are unalive and you're buried, Uncle Sam is looking for what he can take from your estate. right? So live every day like it's your last day. Live with a purpose. If you have a mission, let your mission and your purpose meet, and then do what you need to do. I'm going to keep always talking about this. I'm always going to support y'all. Y'all know I'm y'all biggest supporter. I'm going to always support you. If there's no one cheering you on, I'm going to cheer you on. I'm going to bring experts like Janie on to talk about, her expertise. And Janie's going to give me the name of her book, and I'm going to put that in the replays because I'm going to edit this and put this up. But again, y'all, I love y'all. Okay. If you positive, I love you. If you're negative, get out. Tune out. I don't want no negativity here. Negativity don't rent space in my head. Get out now. Okay. And don't come on this channel and tell me, well, this don't work, that don't work, this don't work, and y'all don't know what y'all talking about. We know what we're talking about. And I usually don't get people like that. So I don't know why I'm hyped up like that. I just want people to live their best lives. We're women. We're practically second-class citizens. Don't let social media fool y'all thinking y'all we can do everything and say everything. We have to fight every single day to get where we need to go. And I'm not trying to take over Janie's because this is Janie's show, not mine. But I just want y'all to know, try these things. So many people are sleeping. They can't get up. They're debilitated because of having going through menopause, perimenopause, going through having cycles and cramping and, fibroids and things like that. I'm telling y'all. And also, let me put this in there. And Janie, you can say if I'm right or wrong. I have no problems with that. And I'm not going to edit it out. Sometimes these things that happen to us, menopause, cramps, and all that, it's also tied to your emotions. Okay. It's
Just
tied to Janie. Am I telling it or am I telling it?
well, you know what? I'm just, all I have to say is yes, you're absolutely. I completely agree with you. Everything you're saying. Yeah. And talking about emotions, absolutely. This is why I constantly talk about, people talk about stress management. It's such a poor term because you can't manage stressors, because you're sort of walking down the road on a Tuesday afternoon and then suddenly, wham, you get some massive thing happen that you could not have foreseen. So, this is the thing. These are stressors. You can't do anything about them. But what you can do something about is your response to that massively stressful situation. So that's something we all need to bear in mind. We have so much more control over our future lives than we could ever even begin to imagine through correct nutrition. So, the kind of thing that Jacqueline talks about and I talk about, we're both on the same track, and we are sisters. We're both still absolutely on the same track here. But yeah, your emotions, and I see so many of my patients who are women who are in wrong relationships, and that are just not doing them any favors, but through conditioning and sort of subconscious messaging that they're getting, or perhaps they're embroiled with or entangled with a narcissist or something like that, which makes things incredibly difficult to walk away from because of all the manipulation that's going on. So all of these things serve to make us unbelievably unwell, and the more disempowered we are, the more we are going to succumb to those diseases, those so-called diseases of aging, and things like a difficult peri and menstrual cycles, perimenopause and menopause. It's not rocket science. We're not talking about anything obscure or obtuse or anything like that. It's so simple. Eat right, get enough sleep, make sure you're hydrated, do your meditation, loving. It's Valentine's Day. Let's talk about loving kindness meditation. In fact, the CMA newsletter went out today, and I put together a beautiful article on the massive healing power of kindness, compassion, love, and altruism, and how by embracing those things and cultivating those things like gratitude in our lives, what we can do is it makes a big difference. It reduces inflammation. These things things are physically measurable. It reduces inflammation. It improves our hormonal function and balance. It enables us to actually, would you believe, lose weight. There was a wonderful study where they had soldiers doing a metta meditation. So metta is loving kindness meditation. So they had these soldiers doing metta meditation, had another group of soldiers who were doing just general meditation, and yet another matched group who were doing no meditation at all. And it was the loving kindness meditation soldiers who actually dropped weight and had it stay off. They weren't changing their eating patterns at all. But this is the power of this stuff that we just can't even, I mean, you just can't even believe that this is possible, yet it is. This is what the data say. So yeah, you're absolutely, Jacqueline, hats off to you, lady, because you are amazing. And I just, you're getting such a beautiful message out there and empowering so many women. And it's beautiful to see. And I want those women as well to be able to realize that they are mentors to the younger generation. And so please, whatever you talk about to your younger loved ones, the daughters of your friends, for example, anybody any female that you have any interaction with, and don't forget the power of what you can put out on social media, the positive messaging about, look, you are young woman, you're in control, you can do this, this, and this. Just remember that you've got more control over your future health and well-being than you could ever begin to realize.
And that's why, I dubbed the name Women Are Worthy, because we're worthy, right? Oh. So, and that's what I want people to understand. This has just been so informative for me. And I just love things like that. I was going to say something, but it's going to be on another show when we were talking about emotions, because baby, when I tell y'all, I got a story to tell y'all when it comes to, let me put this out there. You got to get rid of toxic people out of your life. You got to, because toxicity, stress can kill you. So I got a story for y'all that has something to do with me. I'm going to share my story. And I don't care, because look, Janie, I told people I don't divorce half my family. If I got 99 people in my family, I probably only am still married to 2. Okay, because I can't deal with toxicity. I don't deal with it. But again, we want to thank everyone. Tasha, thank you for tuning in. We want to thank everyone for tuning into the Women Are Worthy Network. I am definitely going to post Janie's book. We're going to talk about all the books that she's had. We'll post that, and I'm going to edit this and everything like that, even though this is live. Janie, I'd like you to send me that article, because I'd like to put it on my website, if you can. I'd like to put it on my website, of course, give you credit and all that kind of stuff, your picture and things like that. So again, hey, I didn't do housekeeping. You got to like, subscribe, and if you want to join our tribe, you must subscribe. Y'all, I came up with that. If you want to join our tribe, you must subscribe. And don't forget to share. Sharing is caring. You can't keep this information for yourself. You got to give it to other people. We want to thank everyone again for tuning in to the Women Are Worthy Network. We love you. Please share, because we want people also to get this information. You can't be stingy. Don't be stingy with the information.